Welcome to the Military Times Reporters Roundtable, where we bring you the inside stories behind the biggest headlines each week. I'm Leo Shane, Capitol Hill Bureau Chief from Military Times. With me again this week are Megan Myers, our Pentagon Bureau Chief, and Howard Altman, our Managing Editor. Thank you both for your time today. Let's start with this report out of Oklahoma that the new commander of the state's National Guard has said he's not going to enforce the Defense Department's COVID-19 vaccine mandate on his troops. Howard, talk to me about this. What is the reasoning here?
Well, on November 2nd, the governor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt, wrote to the Pentagon asking them not to enforce the mandate on his Air and Army National Guard troops. He called the mandate irresponsible and said that only 10% of the troops had not taken the vaccine. Army Brigadier General Thomas Mancino, the acting adjutant general, said that he would not enforce the mandate on his troops while they're on state orders. The apparent rejection of the Pentagon's call to have troops vaccinated or face discipline and ultimately removal from the force.
So this is just for state orders. Megan, talk to me. What's the Pentagon's reaction to this? Oh, can the Oklahoma Guard, can they do this?
Yes, they are able to do this, but like Howard said, it would be limited to state orders. And so the thing that needs to be cleared up is what is considered a state status versus what is considered, a federalized status. The immediate reaction is, okay, you can't be mobilized on Title X orders. If you need to go to some sort of training or school to help with your career or for the readiness of the unit for a future national deployment or a national mobilization, you can't go to that if you're not vaccinated. The real question here will be when you go to a drill weekend in the Guard and you are considered in a Title 32 status, does that mean you belong to the state or does that mean that you belong to the federal government? The federal government pays for that drilling weekend. So, the initial legal response is, well, if you're not vaccinated, you can't even do the most basic things in the Guard. So maybe this is all just for show. But the Pentagon has confirmed they are consulting with their lawyers, they're consulting with the National Guard Bureau to see what the proper response will be to this.
It seems like it's just a confusing mess here. Talk about the larger DoD mandate here and how things are going with vaccinating troops. Are we seeing most troops just going along with this?
At this point, it is most troops, and it's kind of broken down by service, honestly, based on the proximity that they are to their mandate deadline. So the Air Force made it to about 97% when its active duty deadline came up on November 2nd. The Navy is about 95% fully vaccinated, 99% partially vaccinated. Their mandatory deadline, along with the Marine Corps, comes up November 28th. And then it will be the Army after that, and then the reserve components after that. So it remains to be seen, especially for the Army and the Army National Guard, which does not have to be vaccinated until the end of June, how many people will be kind of stragglers after the end of this. But so far, the vast majority of troops are stepping up for these deadlines.
Well, while the Pentagon's dealing with that, they're also dealing with the fallout from two different Inspector General reports that pointed out failures in the handling of suicide screening among troops who are leaving the service and sexual assault cases among troops who are in the service. Megan, you covered both of these reports. Talk to us about what the problems they saw are.
The common denominator in both of these reports is that there are instructions and guidance governing how these two processes are supposed to be handled, and essentially it's just not being carried out. Not necessarily because somebody doesn't want to, but because the instructions, this happens often with DoD instructions, that if they are not meticulously clear about the implementation and the oversight for things, then the implementation and the oversight might not get done because someone will look at the memo and say, I don't know what this means. I don't think we have to do it. So, what that means for service members who've been getting out of the military, they're supposed to be getting a suicide risk screening as part of their separation battery of tests and screenings, and that's not happening consistently. And they're also not consistently being looked into VA services for the minute that they are discharged, so that if anything is going on with them right after they get their discharge papers, they can immediately plug into the VA for care. The issue with sexual assault is that there are supposed to be trained investigators and trained prosecutors specifically to handle sexual assault investigations assigned to every one of these cases that goes forward. That hasn't been happening. The services have largely said it's because we don't have enough of these people, and they have all agreed that they will do a better job trying to train more of these people, certify more of these people, so that they are available when they're called on to be assigned to these cases.
Look, I get that. I get that these can have complicated side issues and implementation things. But Howard, these are two issues that the military and Veterans Affairs have been dealing with for years now. To hear that they're just not getting some of these fundamental things done is mind-boggling. What kind of confidence can troops have if that their leadership is taking this seriously if they're seeing these kind of reports?
Well, people I've talked to and the reaction I've seen online, not much. People are not surprised that these things haven't happened the way they should. It's kind of the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. They're not at all surprised, and they don't believe anything will ever really change. Do you think anything will happen in Congress to move things along?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of frustration when these reports came out. We saw quite a few offices that were putting out angry statements saying, why can't they get this right? You know, the suicide issue has been a major one on the veterans beat as well, and trying to get their arms around that, trying to find ways to reduce veteran suicide. One of the clearest things they've said is having these warm handoffs, having these connections, so that there's seamless care for troops as they go into veterans medical issues. But if that's not happening, if they're not getting those checks, if Veterans Affairs doctors don't know about problems, it's not going to solve it. So I don't know at this point. We'll see. I'm sure we'll see lots of angry statements, but if they've already mandated these changes, what more can they do? It's difficult. That's all we have time to cover here today, but thank you both for sharing your insights, and thank you all for tuning in. You can follow all of our coverage on these and other issues in coming weeks at militarytimes.com. We'll see you next time.